Hello boys, this is White Pill Media and welcome back to the channel. This week we have something a little different, something a little special. I'm talking about the StoryTeller. The StoryTeller is a collection of 9 episodes that are based on more kind of obscure European folk tales. The show has a combination of like actors and puppets because this is produced with the Jim Henson Company, Jim Henson, Dark Crystal, Labyrinth, that type of thing. So it has like really interesting, good special effects. I'm a big fan of like folklore and mythology, so it was really interesting to me. They also had 4 episodes later on called The Greek Myths, and I'll talk about those as well. But I'm going to run through all the episodes in the whole series. If you like mythology and folklore and you find it interesting, I 100% think it's worth your time. It's really cozy. It's nice. I had never seen this before. Like as a kid, it came out before I was born. A friend just recommended it to me recently, so I checked out. I'm like, wow, I really like this. So yeah, if you're interested in like folklore or whatever, it is free on YouTube. I will have a link to it down below where you can watch the original ones and then the Greek myth ones. This guy, he has them all on his channel, and like he did an AI upscaling. Like they look good to me. So yeah, it's free. The framing device is the StoryTeller. It's John Hurt. He's sitting before a fire and he's telling this tale both to his viewers, and he has this talking dog, which is like this puppet, and they're pretty nice. Like some of these I was more familiar with and other ones I had never really heard of before. Without spending any more time, we're just going to get into the episodes. We start with Hans my Hedgehog. This is about a farmer and a wife who want a baby, and she's so desperate for a baby that she says, I wouldn't even care if my baby was an ugly hedgehog. And woe to them, they have an ugly hedgehog baby. He is like maybe the weirdest looking of like all the creatures or whatever in any of the episodes. He's like the most odd, just kind of the face. But the husband hates him. And the hedgehog boy learns, how ugly he really is, and he wants to go away. He rides on a rooster. The mother dies of grief. And then 20 years pass. His lost king is found and rescued by the hedgehog in the forest. Promises to give the hedgehog whatever the first thing that greets him when he gets home. And his dog is usually the thing that greets him first when he goes home. But it's not his dog, it's his daughter. So he's forced to give the princess away. The princess is forced to marry the monster man Hans, but she notices at night that the skin of hedgehog, I guess they're called quills. Like I know if a porcupine it's called quills, I guess if a hedgehog it's also quills, but he's able to shed his coat. And there's a man there, and she's really confused by it. And he talks to the man, and the man goes, what would you rather have for a husband, man or creature?
I have a husband, sir, and he is what he is. No more and no less.
Then forgive him, madam, if he returns to his skin.
If she tells nobody about this for 3 days, then the spell will be broken forever. This one did remind me of like Beauty and the Beast. Also some Irish myths that I've heard of. There's one figure called Diarmaid. He's like in the Fenian cycle. And there's this one story where there's this really ugly old woman who comes in when all the men of the Fianna are laying down to go to bed. And she goes around and keeps asking the men, let her sleep in their beds. And they all refuse except for Diarmaid. And then Diarmaid does. And then when he wakes up, the old ugly hag is actually this beautiful young woman. And she like grants him a magic house. He tells her to like, hey, my hound just gave birth to a litter of puppies. Don't give these puppies away for anything. And she's like, okay, I won't. But she does. And then he's like, Diarmaid, no matter what, don't tell people that I used to be really old and ugly, okay? And then he gets really mad because she gives away all his puppies. So he tells people that she was really old and ugly. And then she gets like transported away. There's this whole thing. It seems to be like kind of a common thread where we have the very ugly male figure, and then the woman sees that, oh, actually they're really handsome and beautiful. But we also have examples of very ugly woman, right? But it turns out she's really beautiful. And she also poses this question, like, would you rather have a beautiful and unfaithful wife or ugly and faithful? but the correct answer is to let the woman choose, because then she's beautiful and faithful, right? You want to give her that choice. Unfortunately, our young princess can't wait the 3 days and 3 nights to not reveal his secret. So she tells someone, and then she hears from her mother that she should burn his skin. This does not work, and he ends up fleeing, and she puts on some iron shoes and keeps searching and searching for him until she's like an old woman, or her hair grows white at least. She's kind of cute here when she has the white hair. And she finds him, and she hugs him, and then the curse is broken. Her hair grows red again, and they're all happy, right? Beauty and the Beast, etc. Very nice. The second one is Fear Not, and this is about a boy who is set off to learn what fear is. He is supposed to go fetch buttons for his father. He fails because he just plays his fiddle for this beautiful woman he's in love with. And then his father says, hey, you gotta go learn something. He meets a man on a road. I believe this is a tinkerer. I think this is a tinkerer. And in Ireland, they're like gypsies or whatever. I don't think they're like the most trustworthy people. But that's what he is here. And he's trying to scam him by like selling him a scarf. And like, hey, Tinker, I want to learn fear. Can you make me learn fear? The Tinker cannot. He, in Fear Not, goes around. He plays a fiddle for the monster in the pond. And they're just traveling around. They see this really cool castle. And the Tinker decides to stay outside because he's not that brave. And I did like this line with the Tinkerer. It's just his nature.
And they leave 75 of my gifts should I not return.
Do not leave them here, for you know how it is with me. I'll be forced to steal them and desert you.
Have a little courage, Mr. Mackay.
But Fear Not goes in there, and he's not afraid, even though there's this guy who has no legs, and they have to bowl with a literal skull and some bones. But Fear Not wins, and then the demon goes away. They find a bunch of gold. They return home, but it turns out the woman that Fear Not was in love with is in a coma, and he is afraid for the first time in his life that she will die, and she's okay now, but he has learned what fear is. So, yeah, this was a nice little obscure one. I had not heard of this before. The third one is called The Short Story, and this is the only episode that really features the storyteller in a large role. But this is a time when times are hard in the land. He was a beggar, and he's traveling around, and he tells his cook that he can make some soup with a stone, right? He has a magic stone. So it's like, okay, yeah, I want to see you do this. So they put the stone in some boiling water, and they're waiting an hour. He's like, ooh, this soup's getting really good. Just add a little salt, add a little vegetables, add a little meat, add a little this, add a little that. And it's like, wow, haven't we made a wonderful stone soup? The cook realizes he's been tricked by the end of it, and the king demands a story a day for a year. Otherwise, the storyteller will be given to the cook to be punished. It kind of sounds like 1,001 Nights to me, because that is like the premise of 1,001 Nights, right? But on the very last night, the storyteller, he's out of ideas. He's out of stories to tell. And there was this really good shot of the cook gesturing to the oil because he's very excited about being able to boil someone in this oil.
My mind is a terrible blank. Oil, it says. The oil is on the boil.
Another beggar shows up. This is a guy that helped out at the beginning of the episode. And they decide to gamble a bit. And the beggar ends up winning all of the storyteller's gold, his wife, and even himself. And then the beggar is just very cruel. He turns him into a hare. He turns him into a flea. And then the beggar goes on and makes the cook lose his ear and some of his fingers to the beggar. And like this guy, you know, he just works a job. He just wanted to boil a man alive in oil. And he's the villain, quote unquote. And the beggar then goes on to entertain the king and the king's family. He makes a little ladder appear. And then the young prince goes up it. And then the boy vanishes. So they go to burn the beggar in oil. But the beggar is not burned at all. In fact, the cook is healed. The prince is returned. And the beggar then just magically disappears. And then it turns out that the storyteller has been dreaming. None of this had happened, But now he has a story to tell, so he runs in to tell the king, and ta-da, he's saved. The luck child. We have a boy here who is blessed with luck, and he is destined to be king. He's like the seventh son of a seventh son, that type of deal, right? So the evil king and his chancellor come to buy the child, but his parents won't sell him until they're threatened with the entire family being killed, so they give him away. And the king decides to throw the baby off the cliff, and also the chancellor too, so nobody knows about it. Of course, as these stories go, the baby lives, and the king goes on to have a baby girl, a princess. Later on, Lucky, which that's what the baby's foster parents name him, of course, is brought to the king's court. But on the way to the king's court, he ends up falling into a cave, and he gets drugged and robbed by this like little man. I don't think he's technically a dwarf, but he's just like a short guy. And the dwarf sees that the letter that the king had given him was actually a letter of death. Like he was going to go to the court, give this letter, and then he was going to be killed because it was a death warrant. So the little guy, who's very good at forging, he writes him a new letter, one that will not have him killed. And then Lucky goes to court. He ends up marrying the princess to the letter, and the king flips out, but there's nothing he can really do except he sends Lucky on a suicidal mission to kill a griffin. And the dwarf guy who was going to like kill him before, now they're like kind of friends, I guess. So he's here and he helps them because he's like a slave to the griffin monster. I thought maybe the griffin was the weakest puppet of the series, just because it's like not from design wise, but I guess just like with it talking is a little hard to understand. So I would recommend maybe using closed captions if you watch this episode, because I didn't pick up on everything it was saying. Oh, and to get to the griffin, they had to go across the lake, and there's this cursed ferryman. He wants to stop his labor, but he doesn't know how, so he asks Lucky if he can figure it out for him. And Lucky ends up learning that if someone takes over for the ferryman, then the ferryman will be free. They get the golden feather from the griffin. They get a bunch of treasure. Lucky comes back. Hooray, he can marry. And the king sees that he has all this treasure, and he's like, I want some of that. So he goes off in search of these gems, and he ends up taking the ferryman's place. So the wicked king is stuck there instead. So that's justice. I think this is my favorite one, but this is The Soldier and Death. This is a Russian one. We have a soldier. He's on his way home. All he has is 3 biscuits and a shilling. He spends the shilling. So he's down to 3 biscuits. And on his way home, he meets a beggar. The beggar is playing a fiddle, and the soldier gives him a biscuit. And in exchange, he gets a ruby whistle. The second man he meets gives him boots to dance well. And the third one has a magic deck of cards and also a magic sack that you can force anything into. And the beggar's down to his last biscuit, literally his last biscuit. And he thinks about splitting the biscuit in half, but ultimately he decides to give the entire biscuit to the man. Oh, and apparently in the original version of this tale, the last man he meets who gives him the magic cards and the sack is literally Jesus Christ. Yeah, I think it's literally Jesus Christ who gives them the magic deck of playing cards that you can never lose if you play them, and the magic sack. But in this one, it's just an old man, which is fine. The soldier goes on to the Tsar's palace, which is now empty because devils have taken it over, and he plays cards. The devils look great here. I thought they looked really good. And a lot of the practical effects and everything looks great. The production, the sets, it all looks good. They all work. But here, I think they really shined. So the devils end up staking 40 barrels of gold. And I will say the barrels are a little smaller than you would think. I wouldn't complain, if someone's here's 40 barrels of gold, but they are sized appropriately for these devils who are little imps. So I don't know. I wouldn't complain, but they're not as big as you would think. And the soldier keeps winning throughout the night, hand after hand. He keeps winning. And then when it's daybreak, he captures the devils in this sack, keeps one devil as a servant. After this, he gets rewarded by the Tsar, and everything is good for a really long time. He's wealthy, he has a wife, but his son is dying. And he calls upon his devil servant, and he asks the devil, what can you do? And his servant has a little magic water glass, and you can see death through this glass of water. And if death appears at the feet of the person that's ill, then they can be healed. If death appears above the head of the person who's ill, then they're going to die. There's nothing you can do. I really like the costumes here. They look great. The soldier's able to heal his son. Then the soldier travels around. He just heals people for money and that type of thing. But then he hears that the Tsar is dying. So he returns home and he looks and he sees death in the glass. And death is at the head of the Tsar. So he knows it's too late. So he offers to trade places with the Tsar. So he'll die in his place. When it's time and death has come for the soldier, he's got a trick left in him, and he captures death itself in his magic sack, and then nobody dies. It's good for a time where there aren't really any wars because no one can be killed and no one can die of old age. Everything is just kind of at peace, but it's not a good peace, because he looks out his window one day and he sees so many people waiting for death's release. These are the elderly, the lame. They're waiting for the natural cycle, the release of death, right? So the soldier goes and frees death, who runs away from the soldier, and the soldier just keeps living. He cannot die now because death is too afraid to go near him, and he has to watch his wife and his son grow old and die. He travels down to hell, but hell itself will not take him because the devils are afraid of him in his magic sack. But he demands a map to heaven and 200 souls to bring with them. Travel up to heaven, and he hopes that God will let him in too, along with the 200 souls that he's brought from hell. But no, he is not allowed in heaven. So he pulls one of the 200 souls off to the side and he says, "Hey, take my magic sack, and then when you get into heaven, call me into heaven through the sack." And then, another little trick. When a soul enters heaven, apparently they lose all their memories when they enter. So when the souls enter, they forget about them. And he waits outside the gates of heaven for a very long time, and then he returns to earth. He still wanders. Really solid. I really, really like this one. Episode 6, The True Bride. This is about a girl who's taken in by trolls. She keeps being given impossible tasks. And then she has this line. It's called the Thought Line. It kind of made me think of Narnia a bit. I don't know. I don't know if there's some connection or inspiration there from some earlier source. The line comes to help her. He drinks a pond dry for her. He builds a palace too. He accomplishes all of these impossible tasks for this girl, and she's so thankful. And in the palace that the lion has built, the troll decides to explore the cellar, and he ends up falling to his death down there. This was all part of the lion's plan because he designed all of it. So now the girl is free. She has this great palace. She's a beauty, and suitors come to her, but she turns them all away. She's enraptured by one man, a gardener, played by Sean Bean, actually. That was kind of nice. And things are good between them, except when Sean Bean goes missing. So she travels and she's looking for him. Eventually she sees him on the road, but he does not recognize her at all. Turns out that the troll had a daughter, and she is here, and he has taken her beloved. So the lion helps the girl once again and gives her 3 gifts. The girl uses these 3 gifts to trade with the troll's daughter. I think her name's Trolla. We do a lot of 3s in folklore and everything, right? So 3 gifts, and each time she gives the troll woman a gift, she gets to have a night alone with her husband. It's not like that type of night alone. It's more of sitting at his bedside, hoping and praying that he will recognize her and be in love with her again. So that type of night alone, all right? But the first 2 nights, nothing happens. He's asleep because the troll woman has given him a great sleeping draft, so he just sleeps through the whole night. But on the 3rd day, Sean Bean is shouted at by some prisoners, and they tell him that the girl comes to visit him each night and talks about how much she loves him and how much she wants him to come home and everything. And he's very confused. The 3rd night, he doesn't drink the draft. So he's awake for the girl. He remembers. He's in love with her. He's freed. And they run back home, and the trollop comes after them. But just like her dad, she falls to her death the same way that her dad did in the palace's cellar. So, hooray. 7, The 3 Ravens. The Queen is Dead. This one was one of the darker ones. I would say these do seem like they're pretty appropriate for kids because like folk tales back then weren't like Teletubbies, right? They did have like darker elements to these stories. I wouldn't say they were like gruesome or like overtly sexual, you know what I mean? But like they are like darker, and I think it's better to like give kids something like a little more challenging rather than something that's just kind of like unimaginative, right? It's uncreative, and it doesn't make them think, you know? But anyway, so the Queen is dead, and we have this witch that is scheming, and our king here is actually Jonathan Pryce, who, like Pirates of the Caribbean, he's also Woolsey from Wolf Hall, which I strongly disliked. Man for All Seasons is a much better movie. Anyways, Jonathan Pryce is going to marry this witch woman, but he makes a secret place just for his children, who are 3 sons and his 1 daughter. And his children, they go play there. They have a great time because Jonathan Pryce is a little worried about like his witch new wife. Even though he doesn't think that she's a witch, he can see every now and then there's something sinister about her. Unfortunately, the witch has followed them, and then one day she shows up and she brings shirts for all of the children. But the daughter is off somewhere at the time, so only the 3 sons wear them. And the 3 sons put on these shirts and they get turned into 3 ravens. Honestly, it's a little like creepy when they turn the ravens in this show. Like, it looks good, like it's kind of disturbing. And then the princess runs away. The ravens tell her that night to be silent. And if she's silent for like 3 years, 3 months, 3 days, we do a lot of 3s in mythology, then the spell will be broken and they will be normal again. She's completely silent. She's not allowed to communicate with everyone. But then one day she meets this prince, and the prince just talks, and they spend time together, and they really like each other. So he takes her back to his kingdom, and the prince has a new mother who is the witch, because the princess with the 3 brothers, her father has now died. So this witch queen has now moved on to this new kingdom. She's not allowed to say anything. Otherwise, her brothers will be trapped as ravens forever. She and the prince get married. She gives birth to a boy. The baby goes missing. And then her husband is disappointed, a bit confused. A second son is born and also goes missing. And the witch stepmother is planting seeds of doubt within the husband, making him think that the wife is like killing or getting rid of her sons for some reason. And then they have a 3rd son. The 3rd son also goes missing. So the princess is to be burned at the stake because they believe that she is the witch. But at the very end, ravens come in and they save her. These ravens, they turn back into her brothers. They free their sister. She gets her sons back. The witch is burned. Hooray. Except for one of the brothers, he has like 1 raven wing left, but he's fully human in every other aspect because their sister spoke like 3 minutes too soon, which whatever. And then, yeah, it's just a really nice image of them holding each other at the end. So episode 8, Sap Sorrow. This one, we have the storyteller holding up this golden ring. Honestly, this looks like this could be a shot from Lord of the Rings. So this story is about a golden ring. You know, there's a prophecy. Of course, there's a prophecy. The girl who can wear this ring shall be queen. 2 evil sisters and then 1 good sister. Kind of reminds you of Cinderella a little bit, doesn't it? King who is old. He is lonely. He wants to have a new wife. So he has all the women in the kingdom show up and try on the ring. And whoever fits, that's just going to be the new queen. But the evil sisters plot, and they try to wear the ring themselves. So they'll prevent their father from marrying because, of course, he won't marry his own daughters, right? That would be crazy. They won't lose, like, their inheritance. Unfortunately, when the 2 bad sisters are playing around with the ring, the good sister, Sap Sorrow, shows up, and then the ring, unfortunately, fits her. And then the king's like, oh, no, it's the law of the land. I have to marry my daughter. And his chancellor's like, oh, no, you really have to marry your daughter. It's the law. Despite this being an absolute monarchy and you literally have the right to make or change the laws however you see fit, there's no way we can possibly change this law right now So I guess we're stuck, sir. To stall for time, Sapsaro asks for more and more fanciful dresses. Each night, there's one that like looks like the stars. There's one that looks like the sun. There's one that looks like, I don't know. There's one that's like silver, one gold, one blue. Okay, there you go. She's stalling for time, and then when all the dresses are made and there's nothing else she can do, she has fled. And she has like this, because she like sings to animals as well, because all of these women can sing to animals. And she has like this coat of like fur and hair, and she's just like really dirty and ugly and just kind of this monster woman. And she's in this different kingdom, and she works in this kitchen. There's this arrogant prince here who's honestly just kind of a jerk. Really, he is just a jerk, but he's just an arrogant dude. And while they're having balls and whatever, he's like, oh, I'm so handsome and bored. Then this woman enters in this beautiful blue dress, and they dance. And then he's kind of in love with her, and then she runs off. And then the next day, he's talking with Sapsaro, who he doesn't know is Sapsaro, but the monster creature who works in the kitchen. And he's like, man, I really like that chick. And she's being a little coy with them. And then this happens 2 more nights. Of course, 2 more nights. We have to have 3. One of the nights when she's doing the dishes, one of the guys that's like mocking her, I swear to God, this guy is from like Pirates of the Caribbean. He's like, you know, the two, like, they're the 2 like funny pirates, right? But there's like the 2 funny British soldiers. He is one of those British soldiers. So I'll play that scene.
Look at this one. What's the hurry? Meeting a sweetheart?
And on the 3rd night, where she is dancing with the handsome prince, she leaves a slipper behind. The prince decides that whoever fits the slipper can be his bride and will be the next queen. So women come from all over to try on the slipper, including Sapsaro's 2 bad sisters. She's literally called Bad Sister of Far Away. And I believe Bad Sister, and I might be wrong, but I believe she is the fat lady from the 3rd Harry Potter movie. Her name's like Dawn French. I'm pretty sure that's her.
Princess Bad Sister! From
far away.
From far away!
Bad Sister tries to put on the slipper, and it fits for a little bit, but it's like crushing her foot, so they get it off her. And then Monster Sapsaro puts the slipper on, and the prince is like, well, I guess I have to sleep with like this like subhuman monster thing now. But of course, it turns into the beautiful Sapsaro. So it fits her, and the animals make her all beautiful. The end, it's very happy. I think it's some like the darker Cinderella stories, like when the bad sisters try to put on the slipper, it like cuts their toes off or something. It's a little more gruesome, I believe. Our final one of the original Storyteller, episode 9, The Heartless Giant. We have a giant who has been trapped in a cell, who has no heart, and we have Leo, the youngest prince of the land, and he is talking to this giant through this grate. He ends up befriending the giant, and the giant is evil. He has no heart, and he ends up convincing the boy that it would be good to set him free. So the boy ends up setting the giant free one night, and the giant runs off, and the boy feels very stupid. He feels very betrayed, and he's too humiliated by his actions to tell anyone what he did, what's happened. And his 2 brothers go off to fight the giant, one after the other. Neither comes back. Leo goes off to find the giant himself. He helps a bird on the way, and then a fish, and then a wolf, and then the wolf carries him to the giant's home. Who turns out the giant has been turning people into stone. I think he has like a magic axe or something, so he doesn't like kill people. He just turns them into stone, and his 2 brothers are trapped in stone there. And the giant recognizes him, and he accepts him as a servant to the giant, and he learns that the giant has hidden his heart far away, past these mountains, through all these lands, and then it's like across a lake, in a church, in a well in the church, inside of a duck, inside of an egg in the duck. This really reminded me of Koshi the Deathless. I don't know too much about it, but I know like Koshi is like this evil wizard guy, and he's immortal because like he put his heart through all this. It's similar, where across a lake, down a well, in a duck, in an egg, in a needle, in the egg, in the duck kind of thing. So it reminded me of that. Maybe there's some, origin story where it all like kind of spawned from. But the boy goes on this epic adventure. All of his animal friends that he helped earlier. Yeah, that's also a running theme where it's like you help someone and then they'll help you later on, right? That's a fine lesson for kids. That's a fine lesson. So he ends up getting the giant's heart, which is stuck in this egg, and he returns the giant's home, this angry, sad creature, because he was tricked once and he won't be tricked again, and that's why he sealed his heart away so he can never feel anything. But the boy has the heart, and he bargains with the giant. He says, return all these people back to their normal forms, release them from this stone, and then I'll give you the heart back. And the giant's like, okay, please don't destroy my heart. So all the people are rescued, but it doesn't go as the boy had promised, because one of the boy's older brothers grabs the egg in the heart, and the giant's like begging and pleading, promising to change. It's pretty like kind of morbid, and the brother just crushes the heart, and all the people are cheering as it happens. And Leo had a little drum with him that he used to like play when he was befriending the giant, and Leo's drum is crushed at the same time. Yeah, that's it. That's kind of a darker one to end it on, but it's good. You need a little like darkness in there, but I thought this was very solid. Those are the original 9 episodes of the StoryTeller. Just like the framing device of here's John Hurt, here's this cozy fire and this nice little cottage. Like it's very nice. In these episodes, they are not narrated by John Hurt. They are instead narrated by Michael Gambon. There's the first actor for Dumbledore. I think he did the first 2 movies. And then Michael Gambon took over for the rest of the films. All right. We are also not in a cozy house with fire. We're in these like dark ruins. We have like this kind of foreboding intro. The intro as well, because like the StoryTeller intro is very nice. It's kind of whimsical. In this one, we have like this statue slamming and smashing into the ground. Also, something that I thought was a bit worse compared to the original is we're dealing with like pretty popular myths from Greek mythology, while the other StoryTeller episodes were more like obscure myths from like European folklore. So I like this a little more because a lot of those I hadn't heard of, right? But I think just about everyone would know these from Greek mythology. So I wish they took a chance on some more obscure ones. But we still have the dog. The dog is still here. Episode 1, Daedalus and Icarus. So we have Daedalus, who's this great inventor. Derek Jacobi is playing Daedalus. Derek Jacobi, very famous for I, Claudius. I, Claudius, that's like one of my favorite TV shows ever. Yeah, just right off the bat, this feels so much sadder. We're sitting in these ruins. We have this mournful music, and it's a much darker show. This would be definitely for like older children. Daedalus is an inventor, kind of resents his son because his son is not a good inventor, and he has a nephew who is very good. Like he wishes that his nephew was in fact his child. And this kind of ends up boiling up to a point where he's like sort of playing with his nephew on a roof and then sort of tosses his nephew off that roof. It's pretty dark, but he has to flee. So he and Icarus flee to Crete, and the king makes him build a labyrinth for the Minotaur. And then the king of Crete traps them there, so they escape. And then Daedalus makes them both a pair of wings. And he's like, hey, Icarus, don't fly too high. I'm being very serious when I say that. Do not fly too high. That's the one thing you can't do. So Icarus flies really, really high, right? And then the beeswax on his wings melt. He plummets, dies. We literally have a scene of Derek Jacobi holding the ruined corpse of his son on the beach. This is a bit dark for kids, I think the original 9 episodes did a good job of like balancing light and dark. This is pretty dark. He's like cradling the corpse of his son That's a bit too far. Later, he's just this sad man working in a workshop. I think we're in Sicily. Minos, the king of Crete, comes to find Daedalus and to kill him because he knows too many secrets. And then Daedalus kills the king. And that's just kind of where it ends. He builds things. He makes these little statues of Icarus, which is very sad. And that's it. That's where we end here. The second one, we have Orpheus and Eurydice. And Orpheus, he's a son of one of the 9 muses. The muses, they play for the gods on Mount Olympus. Apparently, he traveled with Jason and the Argonauts. I don't know anything about Jason and the Argonauts. I really feel I should read up about it because it definitely sounds interesting. Anyways, he's this great musician. He is so powerful that he's able to play music to a tree, and this attracts a wood nymph. This is Eurydice. They get married. They're having a great time. Their people love them because they make the rains fall. They make the crops grow. It's wonderful. But then one day, a satyr attacks Eurydice, and then as she's fleeing, she trips. She gets bitten by a snake, and she dies. And then Orpheus vows to bring her back from death itself. He travels to the underworld. He comes before Hades and Persephone, and Hades looks great here, like really good. Like that's a really cool costume. And Hades does not care. He can play all day. It doesn't affect him at all. But Persephone is moved by his music. So she begs Hades to come on, let him take Eurydice out of here. Hades agrees. He says, "You can walk out with her, but you can never look behind you or else you will be lost forever." So he's walking and walking and walking, and they're almost out of Hades. They're literally almost out of Hades, and he's questioning, is she even there? And then, of course, right at the end, he turns around and he loses her forever. In his grief, in his madness at the end, he's making horrible music, where his music before did great things for the people in the land. Now he's this force of destruction. So his people surround him and then kill him. So it's a bit dark. Perseus and the Gorgon, episode 3. The king is told a prophecy that he will have no son, but his daughter will. And then this boy will go on to kill him. The king decides to seal his daughter away into a bronze room where the only thing that gets in is some sunlight. And Zeus being Zeus, he becomes the sunlight, and the princess is with child, from a sunbeam hitting her. So, okay, the boy Perseus is born in this bronze room, but then one day the king hears he hears Perseus laughing, and then he decides he's going to have Perseus and his daughter killed. He puts them in this chest. He throws them into the sea. They get thrown into the sea, but they survive. They end up landing on this little island, and they've lived there for many years now. But the tyrant of this island decides that he wants Perseus's mother as his wife. So to save his mother, he decides he's going to kill the Gorgon because he doesn't have any money to give the tyrant. So Perseus, he's on his adventure to go defeat the Gorgon. He runs across these 3 crones, and these seem to be the ones from Hercules, like a staple in Greek mythology. There's the one, they have one eye between the 3 of them, so they have to pass it around. But he's traveling around until he finds and then kills Medusa. He also saw Atlas before, and Atlas is literally holding up the heavens, the clouds. It looks really cool. He decides to help Atlas and free him from this pain. So he uses Medusa's head to turn Atlas into a stone, and Atlas becomes this mountain. It was kind of cool. And then he kills the evil king. Everyone's really happy. He kind of accidentally kills his grandfather, so the prophecy turns out was real. Our last episode is Theseus and the Minotaur. Oh, and for this episode, it's around maybe the 13-minute mark where the audio desyncs a little bit. It was a little annoying, but it's definitely not the biggest thing. Everything else looks great and sounds great for these uploads. We have Theseus. So he lives in this faraway place with his mother. He finds out that his father is actually the king of Athens because he had to move this great stone. This is another common trope where it's when the boy can do this great feat, he'll find his father's weapons or something. It's a ring as well, where it's once this ring fits, then tell him who his father is so he can come meet me because he's a man now, right? That type. Theseus, he runs off to Athens to go meet his father, and his father is being plagued by the king of Crete because he has to send all these young, great people to go be sacrificed to the Minotaur in the labyrinth. And Theseus says, this has to stop. I'll go kill the Minotaur for you, Pop. The king makes him promise that if he's coming back safe, use the white sail, not the dark sail. He's like, okay, I promise. I definitely won't forget. This definitely won't end very tragically. He's like, okay, great. Thank you, son. There's also the princess of Crete who is enraptured by Theseus, and he gives him a key and some other things like this magic ball of like thread so he can find his way around the labyrinth. In the labyrinth, he's able to defeat the Minotaur rather easily, I think. Slays the Minotaur despite the princess begging him not to because I guess they're like technically half siblings, which is really messed up, but that's just kind of how it is with Greek mythology. They're heading back to Athens. He and the princess have a night together on this island. And then I don't know why. I don't know why, but he decides to just maroon the princess on the island, and she's just screaming and cursing him as he does. Oh, he has the Minotaur's head with him, but he's wrapped like the white sail in the Minotaur's head, and like the blood has made it dark. Reach Athens with this dark sail, and the king sees the dark sail, and he jumps because he thinks it's a bad sign, right? He thinks that his son Theseus is dead. Theseus has become something of a monster of his own at the end. It's a little dark way to end it. These were all very tragic. I don't know if there are popular Greek comedies, but if there are, they don't seem to be mentioned too much. I would definitely say the Greek myths one, little too dark for kids, at least young children for sure. What a shame that this just died here, right? Like 9 episodes and then 4 episodes. Because like I think the Greek myths ones are done well. The audience probably needs to be a little higher, but I think they're done well. I wish like something like this would be like continued, you know? It's just good storytelling. The original 9, they have just there's a great charisma there. There's a great authenticity. It's sincere. It's wonderful. You know, you have good actors, you have great production, and like the puppets, those are all fine. It takes itself seriously. I just really enjoyed it. I wish there was more, but I don't know with nowadays how producing more of this would look like. I can just kind of imagine things that would be changed, things that would be like quote unquote updated or fixed. Maybe it's better that it's kind of left behind for right now, but definitely in the future or just in good hands. I think there's so much you could do with just like European folktales and mythology and everything, and just telling like, yeah, just stories like this, just make them more popular and well-known. I think people definitely want to engage with it, and they would engage with it. And the storyteller obviously had a lot of love and respect for these older tales, and they just wanted to share it with a newer audience. So that's it. These were great. Check out the storyteller. It's free. You know, I think it's definitely worth your time if you like folklore, want just something kind of cozy, comfy, just, yeah, you just enjoy it. So that's going to be it from me. Thanks for watching. White Pill Media out.